Welcome to lab number 1 of the NSX4 Install, Configure, Manage class. Now, lab 1's pretty straightforward. Lab 1 is all about reviewing the lab environment and topologies. So this is kind of an introductory lab to get us accustomed to what we're going to work with here and get us kind of working a little bit with the lab environment and understanding the overall environment that we'll be working with throughout the class, throughout the labs here. And so we're going to start out with just looking at the lab environment, right? What's the lab environment all about? What's this desktop we're looking at? All that kind of stuff, and then we're going to go in and look at the topologies that we can work with, or not that we can, but that we will work with, the things, what we're going to build out over the course of this set of labs, because you will be building a fully functional NSX based networking environment throughout this class. And we're going to start off looking at the student desktop that we've accessed here by clicking on your lab link that you were emailed. And we're looking at a computer called the student desktop here. We can see up here at this VMware banner in the screen here that this is the student desktop. That's the role of this machine. So whenever we say in any of our labs, from the student desktop, do this thing, this is the desktop we're talking about. This is the infrastructure we're talking about. We have all of the tools you'll need for the entire class right here. This system is on what we call our management network. That's this 172.20.10 IP address here. And we'll see this over and over and over again throughout these labs where we are assigning IP addresses in the 172.20.10.0/24 subnet somewhere as we're building everything out. That's our management network. Our vCenter server lives here. Our NSX manager lives on this network. Our time server lives on this network. All kinds of things are on this 172.20.10 network. So this is going to be something common that we see over and over and over again. So we'll go ahead and work with that. Now, we make a note here that at various points in the labs, you're directed to copy and paste information for later use. Well, how do we do that? Probably with a text file. That would be my guess. So let's create a text file here. I'm just going to right click on the screen and hit new and come down here to text document. We don't need anything fancy here. And that pops up new text document on my desktop. Let's go ahead and call that lab notes. If I can spell lab notes. And we'll go ahead and open that up. And we recommend plugging in some information. The lab guide tells you about a password and your vSphere client username, but we're actually going to see more information throughout the lab. So I always like to put in a section here for credentials, and my NSX username is going to be admin, right? It's going to be admin throughout the entire thing. We're not doing a whole lot of role-based access control until one of the last labs. And the NSX password is VMware 1 bang, VMware 1 bang. Note the V and the M in both of those are capitalized. Now, we're doing that because NSX has a little bit more stringent password requirements than some of our other tools. So, it's just worth thinking about the fact that this is a slightly longer password, and that's just what we're gonna use here. We're also going to need vCenter or vSphere client credentials. So we'll put in the username here. That's going to be administrator at vSphere.local. And that's got a very similar password, but it's only one occurrence of that capital V, capital M, WARE1 bang. Now, these are not in your lab guide just yet. The vSphere client username is, the NSX password is, but the not everything is there. That's okay, because every lab we have is going to have a task at the beginning. Task 1 of most of our labs is going to be preparing for the lab. And in that preparation, we will tell you web browser windows to have open, credentials to log in if you need to, uh, SSH sessions through PuTTY that we may open, all kinds of things like that. So we've got all of this stuff in the lab guide. You're not going to have to guess about any credentials throughout the entire lab. So we have everything right here, and we'll talk about those throughout these recordings as we go through. So this is really all we need right now. So I'm going to go ahead and save this file. You know, I could have used Control S just as easily, but we're going to save that. Now, something else I want to show you while we're here, while we're thinking about this, I may have a case where I need to save or copy and paste some information. So let's just highlight copy and paste information. And one thing that we may do and that we can do is select the text we want to copy and then click on it, and we can drag it into our console. And notice that that's literally being typed right there in my screen, right there in Notepad. This is a great capability. I tend to not use this a lot simply because I don't want to accidentally grab any extra characters. I like to type things out myself so that I know what I've typed is what I want. And from here, right, we can just use the Windows clipboard on this desktop to go ahead and copy and paste as is necessary. Now, I'm going to undo that. Whoa, I undid a little too much. How about we don't have redo here? Good thing I saved that. Let's go ahead and close that. Don't save and open it back up. So we'll just leave this right here for the time being. I just wanted to make sure that we saw that we could copy and paste or drag and drop text from the lab manual into the lab environment. Now, here in task number 2, right, task number 2 is really pretty short in the grand scheme of things. There's nothing we're actually doing here except reviewing what we're looking at. And if you pull open your lab guide, you'll see that we have this diagram here. Now, that's kind of tough to read there in the little lab diagram or the lab manual panel. If we click on that, that pops the whole thing up. It brings the whole image up to something larger and a little bit more legible. And we can see that there's our student desktop and our management network. And we see that we've got a router on that management network. And, we're not showing here the vCenter or the NSX manager, but I promise those are there. And then we have an infrastructure that we're going to build. So all of this stuff underneath the VIOS router, all the stuff in color, right? The gray stuff already exists. All the stuff in color is what we are ultimately going to build and work with throughout all of the rest of the labs. So we see some gateways, we see some segments. Those are our logical switches that we're going to build. We've got some virtual machines. Now, the SA Web and Web 1 and Web 2 virtual machines, the Web 3 Victim, the SA App01 and SA DB01 virtual machines, those already exist. Those are pre-deployed for us. But we're going to build all the segments, and we're going to interconnect all of them. And this is ultimately what we're going to build, right? So 3 different networks and a couple of routers. We're going to work with OSPF. We're going to work with BGP and do a bunch of really cool stuff throughout all of these labs. So that simple review, right? That's going to close out lab number 1 for us. So if you want, come back, check out the lab number 2 video that's going to come up soon. We'll see you there.